Every week is more dramatic than the last, it seems. Two dramas last week are still going on this week: the federal invasion of Minneapolis and the Buddhist March for Peace. But also this week, the international drama at the Davos Economic Forum in Switzerland, and this snow, ice, freeze, rain storm of the decade. Welcome to Sunday in the House, with my weekly commentary on life, politics, and Jesus. Today, featuring my friend, the itinerant rabbi and spiritual director, Rachel Bregman. I am your host, Dr. Dwight A. Moody, in Greenville, South Carolina, where it's 24 degrees with an inch of snow on the ground. I want to start today with life. I received a message yesterday by email, and I will read it to you in just a minute. But first, the backstory. In 2022, I preached a series of sermons when I was still the pastor of a small church in Hendersonville, North Carolina. I took as my text the letter to the Philippians written by Paul, the great apostle. The next year, 2023, I published those sermons in a book. Here it is. I'm sure all of you not only own a copy of the book, but have more than once given it to family and friends as a gift, right? The opening paragraph in the very first sermon in the book is drawn from a novel written by Silas House. Lark Ascending is the title of the book. His book is a sad dystopian story of the journey a man, a woman, and a dog took to escape the United States after it was taken over by religious fundamentalists. Sound familiar? The title is Living with Hope: Navigating Political Divisions, Global Pandemics, and Personal Problems. You can buy it on Amazon, of course, and order it through your favorite bookstore, local or otherwise. So a year ago, a friend of mine who now lives in Wilmington, North Carolina, contacted me and said she's in a book club, a church book club, and they were going to read my book, Living with Hope. I was very pleased, of course. And yesterday, a year later, I heard from her again. Here is her message to me, and I quote, "I want to let you know that my church book group finished your book, Living with Hope. We would discuss 2 to 3 chapters a month. Everyone loved the book and found it to be so relevant to what is happening now. As I read each chapter, I could hear your voice in my mind," end quote. Now, thank you, Teresa, member of my congregation in Pittsburgh many years ago. You're a true friend. God bless you. Thank you for using the book that way. And now the rest of you online today, get out there and order a copy. You've already missed Christmas, but you have friends with birthdays coming up. You'll be looking around for something to give them. Thanks to all of you who watched this program last Sunday. Some of you promoted on social media, and my total audience this past week was double any other week during our first year. I was thrilled. Thank you so much. It shows you your role in helping to sustain and spread this message, which I summarize as dump Trump and follow Jesus. But better than all of that, last night I got a text from my grandson, Sam. He lives in Charlotte. He's 17 years old, a senior in high school. Some of you remember him because he's been in the house with me on Sunday before, twice over the Christmas holidays. Here's what he texted me. "Hey, Papa, I want to say that your Sunday broadcast last week was extraordinarily powerful. And I want to say that I loved your idea of a march. A Christian march for peace in mirror of the Buddhist one I would do this with you, end quote. Thank you, Sam. I continue to be inspired by the walk of peace, just like I'm inspired by that message from my grandson. That march of peace stands in stark contrast to the ICE invasion of Minneapolis. You've seen some of the videos. I could do a whole show on just the videos that I see during the week of these Buddhists and the thousands of people who line the streets, give them flowers, clap for them, bring them food, protect them from the weather. Somebody asked me, who's going to take care of them in the snow? And I said, don't worry, people along the way, wherever they are. I think they're somewhere in northern North Carolina, maybe about to walk over into Virginia. Pray for them. Let them inspire you. Now, a word about politics. Boy, it's been an eventful week, has it not? The whole world now knows what a self-centered, money-hungry, power-driven person Donald J. Trump is. In one of the greatest ironies of history, his primary support group in the United States is the white evangelical church in America. All of us know people in this religious camp. As a matter of fact, I've been in dialogue all week with one of their members, one of the white evangelical church members. She happens to be a Baptist. She's been defending ICE and Trump and all of that all week long. But I want to note today, like I did last week, that their preachers, the white evangelical preachers, have been silent in the face of the trauma Trump is inflicting on the world. Their preachers have been silent in response to the invasion of American cities. Their preachers are fearful of standing against the murders of American citizens in Minneapolis. Shame on the white evangelical church in America. It reminds all of us where this cowardice started in resistance to civil rights 60 years ago, when the white evangelical church, especially in the South, said no to their Black brothers and sisters, no to their African American neighbors, no to the rest of the United States. Now the white evangelical church has taken the side of Donald J. Trump and his agents of violence and his acts of selfish aggression here and around the world. For centuries, their preachers have preached this message, quote, repent and follow Jesus, end quote. It's time for them to heed their own invitation. Repent of his sinful and your sinful, selfish support of this fascist regime in Washington. Stand with the people. Stand with the poor, the stranger, the refugee, those yearning to breathe free. Stand with us for justice. Do justice, the prophet said. Love mercy, walk humbly with God. Jesus said, welcome the stranger. Dump Trump. Follow Jesus is the gospel invitation today for all of us. God bless all of the people of Minneapolis who are resisting this federal aggression into your community. This week, hundreds of ministers from across the country left their post, wherever they are, braved the cold, traveled to Minneapolis. Many other things were postponed. I was supposed to go to a retreat in northern Indiana. I canceled. Many other people canceled. They moved it to Zoom, so we've been able to watch. But all of these ministers went to Minneapolis and they watched what's going on. They followed, they prayed, they sang. Here is a little clip. There's thousands of clips and people testifying.
Let it shine, let it shine.
these ministers, especially my friend and colleague, the Reverend Kent Gilbert, pastor of Union Church in Berea, Kentucky. I've worshiped in his church with him doing the preaching. As a matter of fact, once I was there, sitting right behind me was Silas House, the novelist that I spoke of just a minute ago. He's there, part of that brave. That is my friend, Reverend Gilbert. He is in Indianapolis, singing, walking, filming, witnessing. He's been posting all of this on Facebook. You can follow him, Kent Gilbert, the Reverend Kent Gilbert. And of course, we all know that ICE murdered another citizen, Mr. Alex Preddy, gunned down in cold blood by untrained, heavily armed ICE agents. Alex was 37, an ICU nurse at the VA hospital in Minnesota, a citizen of the United States. Now, Trump and his buddies have tried to spin it otherwise, called him a domestic terrorist and attacking federal agents. But we've all seen the videos. We believe what we see. I want to say, Donald J. Trump, you are lying to us. You and your officials in Washington, D.C., you are lying. You know you are lying. We know you are lying. You know we know you are lying. You do it anyway. It's part of the fascist playbook. Alex Preddy will be honored and remembered, but not you, Mr. Trump. In a few short years, we are going to tear down everything that bears your name. And remember this, murder is a state crime, not federal. Minnesota has no statute of limitations. The man that murdered Alex will be arrested, tried, and convicted of murder. It'll be a few years before they can do that. You, Donald Trump, cannot pardon or protect him. Justice is coming. Rest in peace, Alex, and rise in glory. The great question, of course, is how can we live in peace? This week, I talked with Rabbi Rachel Bregman. She's now in Charlotte. I first met her when we both lived in the Golden Isles of Georgia. I want to share with you some of that conversation. Take a look and a listen. Welcome to the meeting house, Rabbi Rachel Bregman.
Thank you so much for having me, Dwight. It's wonderful to see you.
It's great to see you again. We have a history. We were both living on the Golden Isles in Georgia. How long were you down there?
Almost 13 years.
13 years at the synagogue in Brunswick, Georgia.
Yeah, Temple Beth Tefillah. Small
Yes.
and mighty.
Small and mighty. I remember the first time I went to the synagogue while you were there, walking around and seeing on the wall the bronze plaque to the Bernstein family.
Berman family, maybe?
No, Bluestein.
Oh, sure, yeah.
The Bluestein family, because Benji Bluestein, whom you know, was a classmate of mine at Georgetown College in Kentucky, and we got to know each other. We both had biblical Hebrew together, and he was a football player and circulated in a different group on campus than me as a ministerial student, but we got to know him, and I was glad to see that on the wall there.
Feels like
you were
home.
there for 13 years. I was there for most of 8 years. We got to know each other really in the great, terrible Ahmaud Arbery episode.
Yeah, lynching. We can say it now, yeah.
Lynching. Yes, that was February of 2020, just before the COVID shutdown.
Yeah.
It was a hard year, but I remember you were one of the leaders of the ministerial cohort. You attended meetings, held meetings, you
Mhm.
were interviewed, you were a speaker.
Yep. I was very busy during
You
COVID.
you were very busy.
Yeah, we started our own organization called Glen Clergy for Equity,
Mhm.
and we worked really hard to help move that community through an incredibly difficult time.
Incredibly difficult. I just, again, to refresh my memory, read through the news articles about all of that, his trial at the state level, the trial
Mhm.
at the federal level. Um, I remember how shocked I was that he was convicted at both levels. All three of them were.
Right. Not
Um,
Ahmaud Arbery. He's innocent. He was the victim, but his tormentors and the men who murdered him.
it was a terrible thing, and it made me proud of the criminal justice system. As I read through it this morning, I couldn't help but think how it would have been different
Mm.
if it were under the current Department of Justice.
Mm. Hadn't thought that thought yet, Dwight. That would have been a very different
It'd
situation.
be in a very different situation. But I was proud of you then, and I'm proud of you still. Now you've moved to Charlotte, North Carolina,
Yes,
just about a
sir.
two-hour drive from my studio here in Travelers Rest,
Mm.
which is just outside of Greenville. So I want to ask you, both in your experience in Georgia and your more recent experience in North Carolina, about the environment that we are in, the political, cultural, racial environment that we are in. What do you, as a rabbi, see and think and feel about what's going on?
I mean, it's painful to watch. It's deeply concerning, and it doesn't what we're seeing in the world, attack on people who are immigrants and who are brown, does not align with the Judaism that I know and love. And it's so overwhelming because what's happening is happening at such a high level of government that I know I regularly feel overwhelmed. I know the people around me regularly feel overwhelmed and unsure of what to do and how to handle this, right? How do you respond in this situation?
Yes, there's the added layer of the anti-Semitism,
Yeah.
which has been on the rise. I have watched these statistics go up year by year by year.
Yeah.
And gosh, I'm trying to remember the recent attack on the synagogue somewhere in the South, or just over the last,
Yeah, Jackson, Mississippi. The
yeah,
synagogue in Jackson, Mississippi was just was
torched.
burned to the
Yeah,
ground about a week and a half ago.
yeah.
Yeah.
A man came in with a gallon of gasoline, poured it all around,
Yeah.
and then
And it's an
later
old synagogue. So it was like kindling. It just lit.
went up. Uh, what's going to happen? Where is this road going to go?
Uh, I don't get a magic 8 ball as a rabbi. I just want you to know that. I don't know what's going to happen. I want to say something about the synagogue in Jackson because I just want
Okay.
to give a little more context for that, right? I have to understand the rise in anti-Semitism. We see a sharp peak after October 7th of 23, when the people in Gaza came in and massacred the folks in southern Israel. And then, of course, Israel has had this retaliatory attack that has been disproportionate to the initial attack, but perhaps proportionate to the overall situation, right? Like, I don't know how to say this in a way that doesn't make people angry at me. Um, so I just have to say, like, the whole thing is a total mess. Um, the synagogue in Jackson is really interesting because Jackson, Mississippi is the home of the Institute for Southern Jewish Life, which is an organization that was started 25 or so years ago. And the ISJL has been serving as the itinerant clergy and educator resource for the small congregations throughout the southeast of the United States. And so, for American Jewry writ large, the center of Jewish life is probably, New York, maybe LA, right? They are like large centers. And then you have like Boston, Chicago, right? The other Atlanta, right? Charlotte, in its own way. You have these other big centers. But for the South as a whole, the center of Jewish life is Jackson, Mississippi. And so burning the synagogue in Jackson isn't just this small, little, teeny tiny enclave. It's an enclave that's supporting all these other small enclaves. And so that ripple effect of that attack has been pretty profound here in the Southeast. And I don't think people, if you're not in the Southeast, I don't think people generally really know that.
No, I certainly did not know that. I appreciate the broader context you have given to that. That was not in any of the national news reports that I and others, of course, listen to. And I've been attentive to Jewish concerns. I had a good friend who was Jewish in high school in St. Louis. And I'll chase this little rabbit. His mother was a teacher in our big high school, the largest high school in Missouri. And when it came time to graduate, I was asked by the planners to do the benediction for the graduation out at Kiel Auditorium in downtown St. Louis. Well, my friend, we were both drummers in the band. He told his mom, and his mom I was very well known as a young preacher boy, even in high school. And they went.
Surprise, Dwight.
They went to the principal and complained. They wanted me to submit my prayer in advance for approval. So the principal called me in his office, and he, as it turned out, happened to be a Baptist layman. And he looked at me and he said, "Dwight, we Baptists don't write our prayers." And he was largely right about that. But I'm just asking you to be sensitive to the situation. And so I do not remember anything about the graduation, nothing about my prayer. But after it was over, we were back in the derobing room. One of the guys in the class that I barely knew came up and slapped me on the back and said, "Well, Moody, that was one hell of a prayer." That's the only time somebody's ever said anything to me like that. But it early on made me sensitive to the dynamics of things. And that's a minor personal thing, but it helps shape a person's sensibilities about these things. Here we are, every week, every day, it seems, brings a new, I can't believe this is happening type of moment. I mean, we're not even talking about Ukraine anymore. We're not talking about Gaza anymore. We're not even talking about Venezuela anymore.
Right.
It's
We're
just
too
like
busy.
There's too much. Yeah,
Yeah.
we're dizzy. Yeah. How do you teach people to manage this and to stay, as I said, sane and steady and sober and not go crazy in all of it, not get angry?
Seeing a really fundamental shift in how we respond or how we need to respond. I think for a long time, probably until the last maybe 4 or 5 years, somewhere at the end of COVID until now, right? Before then, the response was about what we're going to do, right? It was about doing, it was about activism,
Right.
protests, writing letters, right? Those things felt effective, they felt empowering, and they felt powerful. And at some point, that just stops working. And I think that the shift that we are making now, that it's critical to make right now, um, is from doing to being. So if ultimately the world that we live in is a reflection, right? If our external world is a reflection of our internal world, and the external world feels wildly out of control, then the thing that we need to really go deep on is in the internal world. And I think now is a time more than ever to turn towards spirituality, meditation, mindfulness, health and wellness, right? I mean, and you see these like these entities, these organizations, these parts of culture just rising, just bubbling up, right, all over the place around these things, because I think it's really what we need. That by being more grounded and being more focused, we're less reactive. And it's our reactivity that keeps generating the anger and the disgust with one another and the hatred of one another that allows the current administration to thrive. So if we could all calm down, which is really hard to do because the world is scary and it is uncertain, and we are terrified about what this means for ourselves, for our children, for our grandchildren, right? All these things that we've worked so hard to build are now feeling threatened. We're scared. Easy to be reactive when we're scared, but this is the time to um, calm, to breathe, to get good sleep, to drink a lot of water, which I know sounds like so insignificant, but I don't really think there's anything else to do, right? What else is there to do? So if the activism feels useless, and some activism is still useful, I'm not saying all activism should just stop. Like, please don't misunderstand me. In addition to the activism, right? We need this piece of self-care. We need to ground. We need to create these beautiful inner sanctuaries, because that will spill out into this external space and will make for more peace and calm, which is what we have to have, right? We've moved to a place where we are being trained by culture and society and media and politics to actively hate people based on whatever your labels are, right? Your color, your race, your religion, your ethnicity, your culture, the country, your nation of origin, your gender, who you love, right? Anything is now fodder for we can hate you for that. We have to move away from that, and that's an internal shift, because the cultural norm is going to keep pushing that until we all stop reacting to it. And so if we can be more peaceful, more grounded, more internally finding calm, then we will clear the air on the outside. I do recognize that would take everyone doing that, and that seems unlikely, right? It's not a realistic solution to the challenges that we're facing, but I think it is a part and piece of what we will need to turn, to shift the orientation of how we are interacting with the world in which we live at this moment in time.
I want to say that your use of the word reactive triggered something for me, because as a pastor, it took me a long time to learn not to be reactive to every provocation.
Yes.
People say things, do things, and sometimes they're trying to provoke you, and sometimes it's just the overflow of their own anxiety. But it took me a long time, 25 years of pastoral work, to learn this lesson, and I've said it to many, many people. Not every provocation needs a response.
Right.
But I had never thought of it. I'd always thought of it in terms of kind of personal stuff. And here you are, you're using it as a strategy for the public stuff.
Yes.
And the cultural stuff. And as you talked, I could see immediately how this is the extrapolation of this fundamental lesson that I've tried to instill in my own pastoral work, that culturally, politically, not every provocation, and there are some people in high levels of government that are very, very skilled at provocation.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, honestly, I think I know this because of our experience in Brunswick, Georgia. Right? We got to sit in the front lines of an incredibly challenging and painful and brutal experience, of which we as a whole community, we were all responsible. And I think as clergy, right, one of the things, what do they train us in clergy school? I know they did this in rabbinic school, and I'm sure you learned it in your training as well, about the power of being the non-anxious presence.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
That's the thing to do, how powerful that is as a human being, how powerful that is as a parent. Oh my God, thank God for that training because I am also a mom. Um, that was what we needed to do, and that's what we did, right? We tried to hold space for all the feelings, for all of the rage and outrage and grief and disbelief. And, we had all these people who had to come to realize that they had played a part in creating a culture and a society that allowed for these three men to chase down a young Black man who's out for a run.
Yeah.
And that it took a long time for that to come out. Right. And one of the things that I think was really very painful was the moment when the lawyer for one of the attackers released the video, right? Somebody had taken a video of this whole event. They released the video thinking that this was going to exonerate the men who had murdered Ahmaud Arbery. That's about culture, right? That's about cultural normativity. And what happened was there was a rude awakening for these people because they're like, oh, we thought what we did was okay. And the whole world said, absolutely not. But us sitting in Brunswick, Georgia, had to face the fact that we were that culture, right? We made that culture. So I learned in that place about communal spirituality,
Mhm.
about what it is and what it can be, and how powerful we can be in shaping it and letting our communal interactions be an opportunity for resource, for community, for strengthening, as opposed to, putting each other down, which regularly the public space is like scary. And what we did was we made a place that felt safe, that felt warm and welcoming, and that held all of it, right? It held the anger, it held the heartbreak, it held the incredulity. Um, yeah, so I think the things that I know now come straight out of the things that I learned then. And since then, I mean, I've spent a lot of time thinking and writing and working on ideas around communal spirituality and how do we build it and how do we create it and how do we create it outside of the institutions that we live in, right? Once upon a time, we had things like civics that taught us how to be responsible for each other, right? The golden rule we learned in second and third and fourth and fifth grade. We don't have that anymore, right? Even if it still exists within the religious space, fewer and fewer people are going into the religious space. So we're not learning it. It's not at the forefront of our culture at this point in time. And I think it's a really critical shift that we need to make, which is why I think the internal piece is so important, right? Um, do unto others as you do for yourself. Okay, well, are we doing for ourselves? Right? Am I taking good care of myself? Am I aware? Am I keeping myself calm so that when the world comes flying at me at 10,000 miles an hour, I can stand there and breathe through it, as opposed to freaking out and panicking and just putting more anxiety and stress and distress into an already overloaded universe.
And you're taking these lessons, this vision,
Mhm.
to a national audience as a spiritual director. And
Yes.
the things that you learned, that we learned together down on the Golden Isles about staying calm, uh, being non-reactive, taking care of ourselves so that we might be a center of spirituality and sanity and strength.
Hmm. Yeah. So I'm a spiritual director. And so what that looks like is that I do individual work where I work one-on-one with people about their spiritual lives, their inner spiritual selves, about deepening their sense of relationship with the divine, with themselves, with the world that we live in. It doesn't, I mean, I'm a rabbi, but it's not, doesn't have to be Jewish specific. So if people are interested in having a new spiritual director, I have some room in the calendar. And I've also been doing spiritual direction groups, which I find really, really interesting because it's the place where you get to really practice the communal spirituality piece. And I've got, some groups online and some in person. So also if people out there want to do a group spiritual direction thing, I'm also available for that. Um, you know, there's this opportunity to practice this kind of deep listening and the ability to sit in a space designated for listening and hearing each other, and that you don't have to respond. You don't have to react. So creating a time to practice these critical skills for this moment, I think is very, very powerful. I know it's powerful to me, and I think it's been powerful for the people that I've been working with. So I'm very excited in this moment to be doing that kind of work.
Well, I'm excited that you're up here near us again and that you're in the meeting house again. And
Dwight, you forgot to mention that when
yes,
you first started the meeting house, I was your very first interview.
yes,
The
yes,
first day.
you were. When I started the
Mhm.
radio show down there, you were the very first person that came into the studio.
Yeah.
You're
It's a
exactly
place of
right.
honor for me.
I should have mentioned that. And here we are again. I'm still at it. You're still at it.
Here we are.
Rachel, God bless you.
And you, Dwight.
Let's do something good together.
Amen to that. I love that plan.
Thank you for being in the meeting house. I'll be back in just a minute to wrap up the show today.
Dwight, you're up.
Thank you, Rachel. And thank all of you for joining me in the house today, the meeting house. I encourage you to visit my website at themeetinghouse.net. You can subscribe to my weekly newsletter. Tell me what you think. You can send a contribution to help keep our voice alive. This has been Sunday in the House, and I am your host, Dr. Dwight A. Moody. Grace and peace to all of you.